So welcome. We're going to talk about homeschooling through high school. So my name is Marie-Jo. I work with AQED. I have here Noémi, who is president and co-founder of Facile à Lire. And we also have Sinead, who is founder and president of Quebec Online School. And we have Gina, who is a homeschooling, we were all homeschooling moms, by the way, and she's part of the board of AQED. So Noémi, you want to present yourself a bit?
So I'm Noémi Berlus. I was a while ago president, and I was also director at AQED. Now we have very competent people like Marie-Jo and Gina who are on the board and who work hard for us. So thank you, Marie-Jo, for inviting me. I am a mother of two. My son is starting his 5th year of high school in homeschooling, and my daughter is starting her 1st year of high school in school this year. It will be her first year in an actual school. I've been homeschooling for going on 11 years now.
Thank you. Gina, you want to go ahead? Present yourself?
Sure. My name is Gina Picconi, and I've been on the board with AQED for a year now. I have 3 children, 2 young adults, and 1 who is 11 years old, whom I'm homeschooling at the moment. So yeah, it's been about 11 years for me. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you.
Lost my train of thought.
I'm Sinead. I have been teaching since actually, I think my first paid job when I was 14 years old. I was teaching piano. And then it just went on from there. When I came to Canada first, I was the principal of an alternative private school here in Montreal. And then we kind of closed that down because there were too many restrictions. It became less alternative and more just private. So we closed that down, and I homeschooled my 3 kids. The older 2 went through a more traditional route, in that they went they got a regular Quebec diploma. And the younger one, then I kind of met Noémi and a few other people, and they all introduced me to unschooling, and I freaked out a little bit first and said, what is this? And then my son actually really did really well with it. So he unschooled a lot of his younger years, and then finally decided he wanted to go to college. So he got an out of province diploma. He's in college now, absolutely blooming, loves every minute of it.
Thank you. My name is Marie-Jo, and I was a volunteer at AQED before, and then a board member, and now I'm a director of AQED. I'm also a homeschooling mom. I have 3 kids, but 2 at home, and 1 is homeschooled, the other one goes to school. So the one who is homeschooled has severe learning difficulties, but he wanted to stay in school for so long. He had in 3rd grade homeschool for a bit, but then finally secondary 2, he decided to homeschool. And then he wanted to get his diploma. So we had some classes with Sinead, and that's it. Now we're like, he doesn't know anymore if he wants his diploma or another route. So I'm going with what he's going, but and also I'm implicated with all the certification of studies process for the members, AQED members. So that's it. We're here to answer your questions. So I don't know if anybody has a question, or we could just describe a bit what we did as parents for guiding your children towards adulthood. Anybody has a question? No. Noémi, I know you've been, your son wants to get his high school diploma. So you've been going through the process, and you're going through your school board. Do you want to talk about what's the process are you going through?
Sure. We're with the English Montreal School Board. My son, I've been unschooling my son since he was 9. The first 2 years of homeschooling, we really did it by the book, and it was extra. Extra work, and I was really pushing him. But my son has a little bit of a stubborn and confrontational style. And I don't know where he gets that from. And so me telling him what to do wasn't working. And so we ended up going into unschooling, not because it was something that I thought was absolutely going to work, but just because I didn't feel like we had any options. So he spent from grade 4 to grade 8. So for a good 4 or 5 years, he did not do any schooling at all. I knew he knew how to write because he would write a note while I was on the phone saying, Mom, can I have $20 to go to the DEP? You know, that's how come I knew that he was able to write. But and we were very creative with the DEM at the beginning. A lot of those years was without the DEM, but when the DEM came, you know, we figured it out. We were able to be very, very, very minimal. And then suddenly at the end of his grade 8 year, if he had been in school, he'd been grade 8, he decided he wanted to start studying. And so we did it informally. And then at the beginning of his grade 9, I said, well, if you're going to start studying, why don't you study to get, you know, to do the exams and get your credits for those years. And so we really only decided to get started on our plan at the beginning of his grade 9 year. And then I went through a process with him of trying to figure out, you know, we had to do research to figure out what it is that he needed to do. So I'm sure AQED can help a lot with that, and also contacting your school board to know what needs to be done. In grade 9, I didn't need to talk to the school board so much because there weren't any credits, but I needed to think forward towards the future. We also decided, after chatting with Sinead, who was very helpful with determining kind of our plan, we were able to contact the school board and ask to work on some credits already in grade 9. And I think that is the best thing that we've done. It spread over 3 years, having to do the intense work required to get his credits. And it was a smoother transition than starting BAM in secondary 4 with, you know, the science exam, the history exam, and all the content that had to be assimilated, and then learning how to do responses and learning how an exam works and all that in 1 year would have been a lot to do on top of all the projects. So what we did, and do you mind if I share? Because I think a lot of people have said that this is helpful to see. Do you mind if I share my screen, Marie-Jo? This is something that I created for my son to help him pick up, because I couldn't tell him what to do. He had to make his own decisions. So I said, well, if you want your high school diploma, you have to get 20, you know, a certain number of credits that in the mandatory subjects, and then you have to do a certain number of credits in the optional subjects. The way I built this was just looking at what the government's, the PFEQ says, and then I looked on the local high schools websites to see what classes were offered, just to try to understand what were his options. And then I just gave him those sheets and I said, well, figure out what you want to do. And that's how we started our plan. I knew kind of what he wanted to be able to do his to get his diploma. We were able to go to the school board with a plan, and then the school board was able to tell us what parts of our plan were workable and which ones were not. And it's a very iterative process. So now he's passed all. He completed his whole plan for secondary 4, except for math secondary 4, that it was just too much to catch up on to be able to finish by the end of grade 10. Like, he had 2 years to cover 6 years worth of math material. That was a bit too intense. So now that he's in Sec 5, we'll probably do Sec 4 math this year, and then he'll see if he'll be okay if he wants to get his diploma based on his Sec 4 math, or if he really wants to do his Sec 5 math too and wait to get his diploma next year, because he's thinking of doing a sabbatical. So we're not rushed. We'll go at his pace.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but he started before being like of the age of Sec 4, right? He started his...
Yeah, he started in grade 9. He did 1 Sec 4 course and 1 Sec 5 course in grade 9.
Yeah, that's the beauty of homeschooling. When they're ready, you can
It was really good because, you know, just we did ethics and religious culture, which was writing essays about ethical subjects. And so he was able to practice writing essays on a subject where his grade wasn't based on his English ability. And because we're homeschoolers, we talk about ethical issues all the time. So he did really well in terms of his ideas and brainstorming pros and cons and looking at both sides of an issue. And then I was able to, we used the ERC essays as a way to help him learn how to write a complete, you know, he knew how to write sentences, but he, you know, how to write an introduction, a conclusion, and all that. He was able to practice on the ERC stuff. And we also did financial education in grade 9. It was secondary 5 financial education. And that also, you know, helped him understand how to format an essay, like how to put a title, like basic things that are easy once you know how to do them, but you have to do them once, you know.
The advantage that homeschoolers have when it comes to those kind of elective subjects is that they actually have very little work to do in terms of completing the course requirements. If the kids are going to school, they have to attend a class, you know, once a week or twice a week or whatever, and get homework on a regular basis in order. And then there's credits like portfolios and stuff at the end of the year. With homeschoolers, again, depending on the school board, but I think most of them work the same way. You can have one assignment for financial education or ERC or whatever, and that's it. As long as your kid passes that assignment, then they're done with. So there's in the mandatory exams, things like the history and the science and the math, it works to homeschoolers' disadvantage because they're quite difficult exams, and our marks are based entirely on the final results. But in those other elective subjects, it's absolutely to our advantage. So, you know, go ahead and get as many credits as you want. My kids didn't leave school after grade 9, but I did consult with a lot of parents who had that option, and even people who came back in their adult years and wanted to then sometimes maybe their job required some sort of certification or they needed something. There's all sorts of alternative ways to prove that you have an education other than the high school diploma. Depending on what you want it for, there's a thing that's called the TENS test, which is a very simple multiple choice, maybe secondary too. I think that would be pushing it. You know, in some basic subjects, there's the GED, which is a bit more difficult, but still a lot simpler than a high school diploma. There are many other options to proving that you have some sort of basic literacy skills. And most employers, that's all they want. They want that little, either they don't want anything at all, they just want you to do the job. Or if their policy requires some sort of certification, they want to see that you have a paper from some official organization. Basically, they just want you to say that you have literacy skills and you can learn. So there are all sorts of ways to do it apart from having a high school diploma.
I have Viv here who has a question. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, hi. It's actually Peter. I'm Vivian's husband, but we're here together. So our son is in he's at Stanislas, which is a French lycée in Montreal, and we asked the question about a 9th grade because that's where he's at now, and he is basically just really bored with school and unengaged and uninspired. And yeah, we're looking at unschooling him, which is a pretty scary prospect when he's been at school for over 10 years, because from everything I read, it could take a year to unschool. And I guess our worry is how we satisfy the DEM requirements while he's unschooling, because we have to have a learning program in place. I've kind of looked at the requirements on the AQED site and looked through some of those forms. So I'm kind of scratching my head over how to fulfill those requirements and still actually unschooling him without leading him and giving him stuff that he has to do. So I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Want to answer? Noémi, as an unschooler who had to fill up papers,
Sure.
DEM papers.
Well, one of the things that unschooling in our family, the way it looks like, is the responsibility of the education is no longer just on me. It's mostly on my son. So he gets the freedom to decide what he does, but he also gets the freedom to live the consequences of the choices. So my goal is to not impose consequences myself. I mean, I don't really care if he finishes an essay or not, or if he does this thing or he doesn't, but I need minimum content to be able to give to them. So there's a couple of things. First of all, your son is in grade 9, so he's probably around 13, 14, no, 14 years.
He's 14.
Years old. 14 years old. Okay, so one thing I told my son every year since he was about 13 is, listen, if you don't want to do anything, that's fine with me. You're free. You know, I've learned that I can't push you to do anything. When I push, he pushes back. When I back up, he actually starts engaging and doing stuff. So I tell him what the consequences are. If you don't do anything and the dam fires us, that's what I call it, when they tell you have to go back to school, then I'm going to have to drive you to school, give you lunch, and watch you walk into that door. If you decide to leave that door once I drive off and go to, you know, to a park or something and do whatever, as long as I show the government that I'm doing everything that I can, whether it's in homeschooling or sending my son to school, if he does not go in through those doors, it is up to him, and he can be a dropout if he wants. But then the youth protective services are going to come. And I had this very frank conversation with my son, and I said, if youth protection services come, you're going to have to be convincing and to tell them that I'm doing everything that I can to get you to do the things you need to do, and that you're the one who's just old enough. I can't drag you. I can't tie you up. I can't force you to do anything you don't want to do. So do you want to talk to someone from youth protective services? And my son was always, no, I don't want to talk to anybody who can take me away from your family. So I was like, okay, all right. So that is decided. That means that either you have to go to school or you have to satisfy the DEM. Now, here's the minimum required that I feel to satisfy the DEM. We need to be able to show stuff in the bilan in the middle of the year. So are you going to write something that I can show? Or find something, like find some stuff that you wrote to your friends online that's long enough that the DEM's going to be happy. You know, I try to help him. So I'm not giving a portfolio to the DEM. I'm getting an evaluation from a teacher. And so I can have a conversation that's more fluid with the teacher. I also wrote it in the DEM document saying, my son is unmotivated. Here's all the stuff that we're trying to get him to do the work. But one of, you know, in the part that says, do you have any issues that are going to affect your child's learning? I write that my son is unmotivated and not very cooperative, and here are the things that, you know, I'm doing. So I'm doing it, but I am not doing the guilting. I'm not doing the ultimatums with my son. I'm not doing anything that is going to ruin my relationship. It is me and my son against the world. And so I'm giving my son, here are the consequences of different choices that you have. Which consequence do you want to live? I'm going to back you up on any of them. You tell me where we're going, but here's what you're going to have to do if you don't want to end up living somewhere else with people because, you know, they've judged that I am an unfit mother.
Okay. Because I mean, I was thinking of doing something similar. I was thinking of sitting down with the DEM requirements with him and saying, hey, what do you think about this? How are we going to do this?
One of the things that I thought when my son was 9 and we decided to unschool was, I can only sit on him for a certain number of years. At some point between 14 and 17, he's just going to push me off and do whatever he wants anyways. So when we get to the 14 to 17, do I want to have a relationship where he actually comes to me when he's having issues? Or do I want to have a relationship where he's going to move out as soon as possible and drop out? And so if he graduates high school, he's going to graduate because he wants to be there. And if he doesn't, well, at least we'll have a stronger relationship. So the day he realizes that I was kind of right when I said he needed to study, he'll feel comfortable coming back to me and we can talk about a plan, whether it's at 17 or 20, to get him on a path where he can get a job that he wants. It's a huge leap of faith. And it's very hard as a parent to.
Yeah, it's scary as hell.
You can't imagine that your child in school is suddenly going to be the perfect. And that's what people, when they judge you, they're like, yeah, but if he went in school, he'd be like, and you're like, no, there's at least 30% to 40% of the boys, especially, that are not in school like this. They're like being dragged.
He is in school and his grades are sliding and he's just bored, but he's a very bright kid. It's just, he's just bored. He's just unengaged with it.
When I first started homeschooling my son in grades 8, I left, like we were saying, time to unschool, so we weren't doing too much formal. And when they have the space to do that, you can find traces. They do stuff. They do researches on different things they want to accomplish. So there was plenty, just in his regular interest, I could find a whole bunch of traces. Even when we had a conversation, he's telling me about a project he did. I'm like, oh, can I please record that? And that became a trace. So it happens through different activities too.
I think I've given my learning plans to AQED to put on the members section. So I never used, I had like a 1 or 2 hour meeting with Sinead once per year, just once we decided we wanted to graduate, because she knows how to navigate that system well. But in terms of just unschooling, like a grade 9 thing, I would just do my learning plans myself. And so you can probably see them on the AQED website.
Okay.
Right, it's in the member area. You have templates and things that you can see everything.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Gina, you took a different path with your oldest son. Want to talk about that?
Sure. So for me, my oldest son, he's now 22. He was in school from kindergarten to grade 4. In grade 4, I decided that I wasn't going to have him return. He had a lot of learning difficulties. He had vocal and motor tics. It was very difficult for him being in the school environment. So at the time, I didn't know much. I was like a lot of parents, I was really afraid to take the leap, but I said, you know what? I really feel this is going to be the best thing for my son. So I took him out of school. And at the time, the DEM didn't exist. And homeschooling, although it existed, many didn't really know much about it. So when I decided to do it, I had the DPG at my door because the school board had called saying that I had refused to have my son complete school and do his board exams and so on. So it was scary, but when they came, they saw that, I had a legitimate reason that my son had medical issues, and they closed our file, left us alone. So from that moment on, I decided I was going to unschool, because prior to that, they were forcing me to like have a schedule 9 to 5 with my kid and, follow through with the subjects. And, he needed to be, on the schedule, but that didn't work for my son. It just did not work. I tried, but it didn't work. And so once I knew that the DPG was off our case and I was free, I decided we were going to unschool, and we radically unschooled. No books, nothing. Because he had special needs, we did a lot of physical activity. He did gymnastics, swimming, soccer, weightlifting, you name it. I put him into all kinds of sports and he loved it. And during that time, as he was growing, he had questions about certain things, wanted to learn stuff. So he would go online, he would research, he would find information out for himself. He had a lot of fine motor difficulties, yet he taught himself some card tricks, magical card tricks that were very difficult, but he was determined, he wanted to do it. He taught himself magic. He's now taught himself DJing. He cooks his own recipes, looks online, he finds things. He never got a diploma. He was studying dance alongside of the other sports that he was doing. Everybody that was in our community at the dance school knew we were homeschoolers, knew he had learning difficulties, and they supported him and helped him a lot in that. So we kind of did like a sport-études program, if you will. They allowed him to join in during the day to dance with the students who were doing sport-études, although we weren't taking that academic part. And then when he got to about 17 years old, he decided that he wanted to try at École supérieure de Ballet de Québec to audition. So he went, he auditioned, he got accepted. And I met with the director and I told her straight out, I said, look, this is a boy who has special learning needs. He has a passion for dance. He wants to dance. We do not have a high school diploma, but he would like to follow, your dance cursus study program. Now that program there was usually designed for students who were coming from other countries who didn't speak English or French, and they were coming to take dance with l'école to get a professional diploma. but couldn't do the CEGEP program because it would be too difficult because of the language. So I had him do that program as opposed to the academic program aside with the dance. And they still took some academic courses, but they weren't courses that would be sent to the ministry for grading or for a report or anything like that. So he did his 3-year program, dance courses program, and he graduated with his classical dance diploma, and he's now working as a professional dancer. So I think, in my experience, if you have a student who's really focused and has a certain passion that they want to follow, and you guide them along that path, and you communicate well with the people that are involved, sometimes you can bypass some of the legal requirements, but it really depends on who you're working with, your relationship with these people. But I really believe that first and foremost, oftentimes speaking to the directors or speaking to people in the programs that your child has passion for can sometimes be helpful. And like I said, we radically unschooled. We had no proof of anything. If somebody would have come to us and said, well, can you prove what he's been learning? I wouldn't have anything to show. But now he's doing wonderfully. He's a great kid. He's got a girlfriend living on his own with her. He's doing wonderful. So yeah, I'm proud of him. And yeah.
So there's a lot of different paths. Lately, we had Collège Dominicain, I don't know what's the English word for that, that contacted us with their Head Start program. And I know the University of Ottawa have that as well. So basically, I'm going to say more about the Dominican College because I know more information about them. So as soon as your child is in grade 9, I think, around grade 9, they can follow it's a philosophy program, so they can do the introduction to philosophy with them. So it's actually a university class, and after that it's really personalized. They orient you in different programs according to your child's interests. So that gives you university credits, and you avoid like the high school diploma and the CEGEP. So there's that. And actually, we have an English eligibility, so we could have went for the Quebec high school diploma. But in Quebec, like Sinead explained a bit, when there's a ministry exam, and often even for other subjects, often the school boards are going to impose one exam that is worth 100% of the grade. So for my son, with severe learning difficulties, it was not an option. So he, all the work he did with Sinead in his classes wouldn't have given him anything for his diploma. So he decided to go for an Ontario diploma. So I don't know, Sinead, if you want to talk a bit about that option.
Sure. So the Ontario diploma covers credits or courses from grades 9 up to grade 12. We have what we call our fast track option, which means that students can actually do that in 3 years instead of 4 years.
And you don't need the English eligibility, right?
No English eligibility, no. Generally, what happens with Quebec Online School is that because kids under 16 are still legally required to follow the Quebec program, we will do Quebec courses in those years, and then as soon as they age out of the Quebec system, then we'll switch over to the Ontario courses. So they have on their final transcript, they'll have maybe grade 9 courses will be a transfer credit from Quebec, or a transfer credit to Ontario, and then when you go to apply for university, they actually only look at the grade 12 results to see your percentage mark. So they only need a percentage mark for grade 12. It's not just Quebec Online School transfer credits. If they had gone through, if they were, say, in high school and they had a report card from secondary 3, then that would appear as a transfer credit on their Ontario diploma. In grade 12, there is a final exam, and then there are courses throughout the year. Work throughout the year where they get marks for that as well. Throughout the year, the work counts for about 80%, and the final exam counts for 20%. They do it on a supervised exam online, so they don't actually need to go anywhere. It can all be done from their home. And that grade 12 diploma will get them into any English university anywhere in the world.
And here in Quebec, there's also a process. If you go on like the Concordia University website, they say there's a process for homeschoolers. I know Stephanie Sewell, how do you pronounce her name.
Sewell.
So she has her son followed that path. He was an unschooler as well, and he showed a portfolio of whatever he did during his years to be admitted to, I don't know if it was that university, but it is a possibility. I would say it's harder. The whole French system is a lot harder. They're really by the book with the going through the Quebec high school diploma, then the CEGEP. So no, I don't have. I know some homeschoolers in the past have gone directly to CEGEP, French CEGEP, showing their portfolio and everything, but that was like before the DEM and before all this. So yes, it was done by the past. I don't know if it can still be done, but I know it's much harder with the French in the French system.
I have a question about it's Charity, sorry, second language learning here, because I wasn't too concerned because I knew that it would just happen through relationships. But now with the potential exit exam of English CEGEPs as well, if anyone would have any advice or success stories, because that's definitely where my CEGEP looked like a pretty viable option and now seems a bit more of a different path.
That's one of the reasons why a lot of people are skipping CEGEP, doing grade 12 and going to university instead.
Okay.
Frankly, I mean, my son wanted to do CEGEP, wants to go to CEGEP. I suspect it's for the socialization aspect, but if it weren't for that, I mean, if he asked me, I would tell him to just go to university. I see no added value to doing CEGEP.
I inquired with Champlain, and they were saying that because he's following the Ontario program, and they were saying that he would not necessarily have to do grade 12. After grade 11, he could enter CEGEP. So it's just another option.
In our case too, like we had never planned to go to CEGEP or anything, but being that he chose that path, we ended up at l'École supérieure, and that's a French school. Now my son's French was like grade 2 maybe, and I was really concerned, and so he went in, and it was tough, the language thing, but then he ended up meeting his girlfriend there who was French speaking, and now he's doing pretty good. He understands and he speaks, and this is without any formal education. So sometimes those kind of things come with experience, with exposure, when it's not graded, as Noémi was saying.
In general, homeschooling is an Anglophone thing. So Anglophones have heard of homeschooling. In the US, it's popular. Outside of Quebec, it's a lot more popular. And the French side, it's only in the last, like when I started homeschooling 11 years ago, I didn't know that homeschooling was legal in Quebec. It's only when I heard about it, because I have gifted children, and I was looking for a solution, and I found out that in the US, a lot of gifted kids homeschooled, that I started researching. I'm wondering if it's legal here in Quebec, but I didn't even know that it was something. We've only been in the papers for the last 3 or 4 years. So I think, in 10 years, the path will have been built. I think it's starting to get built now because there's families pushing on the doors. I think it'll be a little bit easier in 3 or 4 years when your kids will be graduating. But right now, today, it is harder to get into a French CEGEP. I think it's going to change though, because there's a lot of stubborn mothers knocking on doors and slowly pushing them over.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me in this conversation. Have a great day, everyone.